just a small amount of weight loss can lead to big health gains for obese people. Losing just 5% of their weight cuts back the risk of heart disease and diabetes. It also improved the functioning of their liver and muscles. Those were among the findings from a small study at Washington University in St. Louis. And experts say it's proof. Even dropping what may seem like a small amount of weight, just 5%, can pay off. And it can also set people on the road to losing more until they get to a healthy weight. Pat?
Well, coming up, could you be putting yourself at risk for cancer, one spoonful at a time?
And it just absolutely amazes me that medical science is just now finding this out.
Find out what the culprit is, and you'll be stunned when you find out how much you're eating of it. That's next.
Well, as if it's not scary enough living in the world we are, scientists are now saying we may be killing ourselves. 2/3 of all the cancers are caused by our own bad choices, like smoking or not exercising, and the granddaddy of them all, a poor diet, because what you eat can literally kill you. Our CBN News health reporter Laurie Johnson tells us about the dramatic link between cancer and sugar.
A clear relationship between sugar and cancer leads scientists to two conclusions. Sugar use contributes to cancer, and going without it can slow growth of the disease.
100 years ago, most folks consumed only 4 pounds of sugar a year. That's this much. Now, however, the average person takes in 40 times this amount, 160 pounds of sugar a year. That's this much.
Food manufacturers add enormous amounts of sugar, usually in the form of high fructose corn syrup, to products we consume all day, every day. Coffee drinks and cereal, soda and snacks, even foods you wouldn't expect like spaghetti sauce and peanut butter. This tiny container of yogurt contains more sugar than a candy bar.
Now, scientists tell us sugar directly influences cancer cells. The amount we consume can either feed those cells or starve them.
In a landmark study, researchers at UT MD Anderson Cancer Center fed mice high fructose corn syrup in percentages equal to what many humans consume. Those mice developed higher rates of lung and breast cancer compared to mice fed less sugar. The study also tells us something about people who already have cancer. One researcher said a lot of patients are told it doesn't matter what you eat after you are diagnosed with cancer. This preliminary animal research suggests that it does matter.
And it just absolutely amazes me that medical science is just now finding this out.
Fred Hatfield knows firsthand sugar intake matters after a cancer diagnosis. Back in 2012, his diagnosis was basically a death sentence.
The doctors gave me 3 months to live because of widespread metastatic cancer in my skeletal structure. 3 months. 3 different doctors told me that same thing.
It's a horrible, horrible feeling to have someone tell you that the person that you love only has 3 months to live and you're not going to be with him anymore.
Then Fred heard about a low-sugar diet called the ketogenic diet, believed to slow cancer in some people. With nothing to lose, he gave it a try, and to his astonishment, it worked.
And the cancer was gone completely.
Fred's recovery didn't surprise Dr. Dominic D'Agostino. His team at the University of South Florida discovered mice with highly aggressive metastatic cancer continued living when fed a ketogenic diet.
We have dramatically increased survival with metabolic therapy. So we think it's important to get this information out.
And it's not just lab animals. Dr. D'Agostino has seen similar results in humans.
I've been in correspondence with a number of people, probably at least a dozen people. And over the last 1.5 to 2 years, and all of them are still alive. So despite the odds. And so this is very encouraging.
The ketogenic diet means no sugar and no starchy carbohydrates like bread and pasta that convert to sugar. D'Agostino says cancer cells love sugar and starch because cancer thrives on the glucose from those foods. Remove the glucose and starve the cancer cells. Glucose also fuels our healthy cells, but if it's not there, those cells can switch to an alternate fuel source called ketone bodies. Cancer cells only run on glucose.
Your normal cells have the metabolic flexibility to adapt from using glucose to using ketone bodies, but cancer cells lack this metabolic flexibility. So we can exploit that.
Since processed food contains so much sugar and starch, people following the ketogenic diet tend to cook whole foods from scratch.
You can go online and there's just cookbooks, and it's clean eating, just very clean eating. None of the sugars, the salts, the trash food.
So when it comes to cancer, sugar is considered public enemy number one. Avoiding it could lead to prevention or slow it down in people fighting the disease.
Laurie Johnson is here with us. Laurie, is this groundbreaking studies that they're doing?
It really is. We already knew that sugar was directly linked to diabetes, which causes amputations and death. We already knew that sugar was linked to heart disease, which is the #1 killer. Now we know for sure that sugar is linked to cancer. The average person consumes 22 teaspoons of sugar a day. That's this many down here on the very end, 22 teaspoons. Now, according to the American Heart Association, what we should be consuming a day is only 60 teaspoons a day. That's that much.
Well, now, most people don't take that many lumps of sugar and put it in their coffee. I mean, where does the sugar come from?
Comes from, well, take a look.
All right, let's take a
Beverages
look. Okay.
are a real big problem. This little Coke right here, that has 10 teaspoons of sugar. That's more than one day's allowance.
Okay.
Right next to it, people think these sports drinks are great. Oh, I'll run around the block and drink a Gatorade. You've got 9 teaspoons in that one bottle of Gatorade.
You got more in that, or as many as it is in a Coke?
Absolutely, just about the same.
All right,
and
now,
then,
what's
then
next
these
to it?
energy drinks, which are so popular. This is not Red Bull. This particular one is Rockstar, but so many of them contain, this particular one right there, 16 teaspoons of sugar in that one energy drink. And look over here at the coffee. That has 20 teaspoons of sugar in it. I got that from Starbucks. That's the Venti white chocolate mocha. It's delicious, but look at all the sugar. 3 days worth.
How much do you have to pay for that?
$5.
To get cancer, you got to lay out $5?
I know. It kills you, and you spend a lot for it to boot.
That one cup of coffee has got more sugar than a Coke or an energy drink. Look at that pile of sugar. How many teaspoons of sugar is in that?
In the coffee is 20.
Yeah.
20. And we're supposed to only have 6 teaspoons a day.
That would be like saccharin. How can you eat anything that's sweet? It'd be sickening, wouldn't it?
Well, you know what the research shows is that when we get our sugar from drinks, that it disables the mechanism in our brain that says, I'm full.
Oh.
So you don't recognize the fact that you're full, and you keep drinking more and more of them. So some people are saying, how can I get all this sugar out of my diet?
Yeah, right.
And one of the best ways to do it, there are a lot of different ways, but one of the best ways is to, instead of drinking these sweetened beverages, to just drink water.
Okay.
And also, you can cut back on the sugar that you add to your coffee or tea, eventually weaning yourself to none, drink it black. Also, stop putting so much syrup on your pancakes and waffles. Again, try to put 0 syrup on your pancakes and waffles. And when it comes to baking, this is a little secret. Just only put in half the amount of sugar that the recipe calls for, or even less. And you can replace that sugar with things like extracts or spices like cinnamon. And if you have to have oatmeal, cereal, or yogurt, buy the plain unsweetened kind and sweeten it with fruit. Speaking of fruit, try to always eat fresh or frozen. Don't get the canned kind in the heavy syrup, because that's just sugar.
My goodness gracious. But it's in cereals, it's in bread, it's in almost everything, and especially for what we give to little children. we create a craving in them for sweet stuff.
It is addictive, and a lot of people are confused when they go to the grocery store. How do I know if a certain product has sugar in it? Because, you know, it's not always called sugar on the label. There are other names for sugar. We already talked about the high fructose corn syrup, but also other foods ending in ose, like dextrose, sucrose, maltose. Anything ending in ose, that's sugar. Look on the label. If you see the word syrup, that's sugar. Corn sweetener, malt sugar, molasses, even honey. And another way you can recognize how much sugar is in a product is look at the label. See the one right here.
Yeah.
If you look at the list of ingredients, the manufacturers are required by law to put in order how much of something is in the product. So they always start out with whatever the product contains the most of. Look right there, sugar is the number 2 ingredient. So if sugar is one of the first 2 or 3 ingredients, that means it has a lot. Also look up above at the nutrition facts where it says added sugars. It'll say it in grams. Just divide that by 4 because there are 4 grams of sugar to every teaspoon. So that particular instance had 20 grams. There you see 20 grams of sugar. That means 4.5 teaspoons.
What do you watch on television? You watch Fruit Loops. You watch, whatever those things are that people eat. Honey buckets of oats and all that. Whatever
Honey buckets of sugar. That's what it should be called.
But, I mean, little children are watch those cartoons, and then they get to the grocery store and they're riding along in that basket with Mommy, and they say, Mommy, I want that. And so Mommy gives it to them because she doesn't know any better.
I know, it's so true. And people have got to stop getting their nutrition information from television and the labels, the front labels of the packages, because people say, well, this has got to be good. It says so right here on the label. It's healthy.
Well, little kids, there's an epidemic of obesity among the young. I mean, before people are 10 years old, they're fat and they can't move around and they just kind of sit and watch television. It's disgusting.
Right, but really over the last 50 years is when we started adding all this sugar, the high fructose corn syrup especially, to all the foods that we eat.
So paleo, they're supposed to eat meat and eggs and fresh vegetables and fresh fruit. And that's
nuts. I know you're a big nut fan.
I do. I mean, I get a great big thing of mixed nuts, and that's what I mean. For example, I had a little bit of bran cereal with frozen blueberries, a lot of them, with some mixed nuts. That was breakfast.
You get a gold star, and I know you're a big tea drinker too.
Oh, yeah,
that's really healthy. Also, if I had to say one thing to just oversimplify the whole nutrition thing, no processed foods.
Okay. Well, folks, you go on the outside of the aisle when you're going around the
perimeter.
The perimeter of the grocery store, and look at those things. You've got to work. You have to work to make that. I cooked my famous minestrone, and I'm telling you, I had to work. I had to chop onions and chop celery and chop this and chop the other, but when it's finished, it's really delicious.
It is, and back in the day, there used to be one person in the family assigned to cooking, and now both people work, and there's nobody to do the cooking, so let's just get it from the drive-through.
Anyhow, Lori, you're going to keep us all healthy, and I'm going to 100. If I guess that's what I'm supposed to live to, 100.
100 plus.
Oh, 100 plus. Whatever.
Yeah,
I'll take whatever you say.
Let's just keep inching that higher.
We're going up little by little by little. Lori Johnson, ladies and gentlemen, we're trying to keep you alive and healthy and well. Wendy, what do you have next?